Hello everyone and welcome to the semifinals of the FIDE Grand Prix. It's Nepomniachtchi versus Maxime, Vachier, Lagrave, and both of them are fighting it to reach the candidates tournament in 2020. So it's definitely a lot is at stake here. And this is the first game of the classics, and Nepo has the white pieces. We do have a nice photo or two of this matchup. There you have it. Nepo even bows his head a little bit as a sign of respect towards MVL. MVL having a nice smile, and there you can see that MVL has 2 bottles of water, whereas Nepo only has 1. Which could mean that Nepo prepared something vicious with the white pieces, and he doesn't expect this to be a very long game. Or, on the other hand, it could mean absolutely nothing. And also we have the first moves on the board here. There you have it. Nepo opens with the d4 and Maxime replies with knight to f6. As you know, if you play e4 against Maxime, he will 99% of the times go for his knight-orf. And if you play d4, he will try to go for his Grünfeld defense. So this is also the case here. d4 by Nepo, knight to f6 by Maxime, c4, we have g6, knight to c3, and d5. The Gruenfeld is on the board. We have knight to f3 and bishop to g7. So not the main c captures, knight captures. We have queen to b3, and now c captures, d captures on c4. We have queen captures, and now MVL castles. We have e4 by Nepo and knight to c6, bishop to e3, and now going after the dark square bishop with knight to g4. So you can't really move it like you can in some lines of the Sicilian to go for some maneuver like this, because your d4 pawn is under attack 3 times. So you have to allow the trade. We have e5 by Nepo, and now knight captures on e3. But this is what he prepared. F captures on e3. So Maxime gets the bishop pair, but Nepo has his preparation. So bishop to g4, and this is a new move. a5, a5 and knight to a5 are known moves in this position, but bishop to g4 is a new move. So it is as of move 10 that we have a completely new game on our hands. Nepo replies with h3. We have bishop captures on f3, g captures on f3, now gaining this massive center, although the pawn setup has been somewhat compromised, but he will use it to attack the black king with perhaps f4, f5 in the future, or h4, h5. We have e6 and now h4 right away. We have knight to e7 by MVL. f5 seems like a very nice square for the knight. We have f4, and now comes b5. You could go for knight to f5 right away, put pressure on the e3 pawn. White will play something like rook h3, defend, and then figure out where to go from there. But MVL says your king is still in the center of the board. It's time to open some lines, and he pushes b5. So what do you do here? If queen captures, rook b8 gets a lot of activity. You don't want to give black ideas like that, especially not a player like MVL. So here, queen to c5, Nepo ignores it, and now knight to f5, putting pressure on the e3 pawn. And now not rook to h3, but instead king to f2. The king will be much safer there than in the center of the board. But now Maxime says your king is now on f2, occupies the same file as my rook. Let's open up the f file with f6. We have rook to d1. Now if you capture, then the pawn can capture here, and that's why b4, trying to dislodge the knight so you can capture here because the knight guards the rook on d1. So we have queen captures on b4. Of course, you cannot move the knight. And now rook to b8. Maxime grabs some activity for his rook. Queen to a3, guarding the b2 pawn. And now c5 is a very interesting move, but it's a move not a lot of people would make, because you allow this captures, create a passed c pawn for white. You open up the d file for the rook, but then you can go queen to c8 and then put pressure on the c pawn and undermine it later, because it's actually the white king who doesn't want the lines to open, not the black king. But okay, with f captures on e5, just grabbing that pawn, d captures, opening up the d file, and queen to e8 now. We have bishop to g2 by white, and here Maxime goes for bishop captures on e5. Now he wants to open up the f file and then create some nasty discoveries with his knight. We have f captures on e5, and now knight captures on h4, opening up a discovery here. king to g1, and now knight captures on g2. And now the idea Maxime had was if you capture the knight with king captures on g2, you have queen to c6 with check, and now after you block you have queen to b6, putting pressure on the f2 square here. And now it's very hard to decide what to play here. Rook h3 is the best move here. You have to allow queen to f2 if you want to look for activity or at least some advantage with white, because if you try something like rook to f1 to prevent the queen from reaching f2 this way, then queen e3, and well, with the rook controlling the f file and with the queen being able to reach g5 and h6, black has at least a draw here, and there are no problems here for black. So Nepo of course did not capture the knight. First he played knight to e4. Now the knight can reach the f6 square, and this knight cannot escape anywhere. You can't go here, you can't go here. If you capture, the queen just captures it. You haven't really achieved anything there. The knight is still coming to f6. This rook can then go to h7. Then the rook can also come here, as the knight from f6 will be guarding all those squares. But worst of all, it comes with a fork, so probably you will have to give up the rook here. So after knight e4, we have rook to d8 by Maxime, and now rook to c1, preparing to capture here. Then you have complete control of the 7th rank. And here it's very hard to decide how to parry the threat of knight to f6. There is a way. It's rook to d5. This allows black to hold on to a thread, because after knight f6 check, you capture, pawn captures, and now rook to g5. You save the knight and you threaten some very nasty discoveries, and it's not going to be easy for white to get out of it. White is of course much better here, but this was the way to go. However, we have rook to b5 by Maxime, and now comes a move that, well, feel free to pause the video and try to find the best move for Nepo in this position while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on exploiting the weakness of the 7th rank. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's queen to e7. Now that the queen left the defense of the 7th rank, now you're just threatening queen to h7 mate. So of course rook to d7, not allowing it. And now, although you could capture on e6, it is possible, Nepo goes for knight to f6 with check. We have rook captures on f6, and now queen captures on f6. And here, well, you could go for knight captures on e3, but then it's just, again, queen captures on e6 check, king f8, and rook to h3, attacking the knight also. You can just go rook to f3. It's gonna be, it's not going to be possible for black to defend. So we have rook to f7 by Maxime, but now comes queen to d8 with check. Rook to f8, and now queen captures on c7. It's very important to eliminate the c7 pawn. It's not just grabbing a pawn. And it works wonders for white that he can grab the pawn while also threatening checkmate. So black doesn't have a moment to catch his breath. Rook to f7, now queen d8 check, rook to f8, and now queen to e7. Again threatening mate, and also with a very interesting trick, because now with rook to f7, now you have rook to c8 check, king g7, and now of course you will see the forced mate in 2, most likely even without pausing the video, as the pawn covers the f6 square. So just queen captures. So I know you all saw it. King captures and rook captures on h7. That's why I didn't ask you to pause the video. It's now mate, as the rooks control the 8th and 7th rank, and the pawn prevents the king from reaching f6. So that's the little trick Nepo had in mind. So it's not possible to go rook f7. Here we have h5 by Maxime, but now queen captures on e6 with check. King g7, and now rook to c7 with check. King to h6, and now, again, feel free to pause the video and continue the attack with white while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, again, congratulations for finding such a beautiful rook sacrifice. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's rook captures on h5. And it's very interesting how long this knight remains here on g2. Because there just isn't a good time for white to capture it. There's always a better move. So here we have king captures on h5, and now queen to h3 with check. And it was in this position on move 36 that Maxime Vachier Lagrave resigned the game. and tomorrow he will have to win on demand. He will have the white pieces, but still. But then again, it's against Nepo. Nepo always plays really crazy games, so anything can happen. But yeah, here he resigns because whatever you do, it's just over. If you block with the knight, it doesn't really help you. Rook h7 check, then you move king g5, queen captures with check, king f5, and now you can either create some sort of a mating threat, or you can just go queen f4 check, king e6, and just pick up the rook and just win the game because you are up a whole rook. And also, if after queen h3 check you don't block with the knight, if you just start marching the king, king g5, still just captures, king will have to move. If king h4, then just rook will, well, obviously the white rook will deliver mate. And if you go start marching up the board, king f5, then again queen f3 check, goes here or captures, and then you just pick up the rook and win the game because you are now again up a whole rook. After queen to h3, he resigned, and we do even have a photo of the resignation. There you have it, a nice handshake. You can see that Nepo, again, respectful. He's very sorry about Maxime. I'm sure he would very much enjoy for both of them to be in the candidates, but of course, you know, he will do whatever he can that he goes to the candidates tournament. But yeah, tomorrow one more classical game for Maxime, and a chance for him to prove that he deserves to be in the candidates. He deserves to be in the candidates. It always eludes him for like a small fraction of a point, and it's just insane that it keeps happening to him. But I don't know. I really hope that he gets it, and then Nepo can get the wild card. He's Russian. He probably would get the wild card. I don't know. Karakin already played in the candidates a few times. He played in the World Chess Championship match, so maybe Nepo would get the wild card this time. But we'll see. You know, you can never predict such things. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Volker Legrand, Tom Petrie, Daniel Silverberg, Tobin Nelson, and Nicholas Dervau-Garnau for contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing the coverage of the FIDE Grand Prix, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and of course, whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.